If you're looking for Amnesia romance recommendations, then you're in the right place, because today I'm sharing 8 of my favourites with you. Now, I think I've talked about all of these books at least once before, if not more, but I've always talked about them in other contexts, in other videos, and not specifically focused on the fact that these feature the amnesia trope. So there is a bit of a mixture in here. We've got a couple of dark romances, some mafia romances, new adult romances, and also a monster romance as well. So I'm going to kick off with King by T M Frazier, and this is book 1 in the King series, and it's also book 1 of a duet, because the first 2 books in this series, King and Tyrant, are a duet, and we are following King and Doe. As the name suggests, Doe is actually the character in this book who has amnesia, and she doesn't even remember her name, and hence the hospital have given her the name of Doe, but she literally remembers nothing about who she is. Now, before I get into that, what I will say is this is essentially an MC adjacent romance. It's a dark romance. The main hero in here, King, he's an ex-con. This is kind of a captive situation. I'll explain a little bit more. And also these two obviously then find themselves in close proximity with one another. Now, at the start of this book, King has just come out of prison. And his friends have basically organised a bit of a party for him. Now, he isn't directly in an MC club. I said this was mafia adjacent. So basically his best friend Bear, he is in an MC. King has never patched in, but he obviously spends a lot of time with the MC, and these are the people that have thrown this party kind of for him to celebrate the fact that he is now home. King is also a tattoo artist as well, and he's got a very dark past, and as we go through this book we learn more about him, what crime he committed to put him in prison, and basically what he's going to do now he is out. Then we have our main female character. She is Doe. Like I say, at the very start of this book, we discover that she has amnesia. She doesn't know what happened to her, but basically one day she woke up in a dumpster, basically left for dead, and she was rescued, taken to hospital. She didn't remember who she was. They were unable to identify her, but she has since been released because obviously she doesn't even have any medical insurance or anything, and she's kind of found herself on the streets. And she's been taken in by another woman, and they've kind of become friends. And Doe is now, you know, fighting for survival basically, but also trying to get her memories back so she can remember who she is, what happened to her, and if she has a home somewhere, because we don't know at this point. Now, because this party is going down, her new friend suggests to her that they go to this MC party, because she's like, this is a great opportunity, we can go, you can basically maybe dress up, flirt with some of the bikers, and if one of them, you know, takes a shine to you, maybe you can become his old lady, and this would not only give you some place to stay, but a little bit of security as well. So Doe agrees to go along to this party. Now, obviously when they're there, she's feeling a bit uncomfortable, and a friend has actually got a hidden motive for going here. She obviously does want to try and pick up someone, but more than that, she actually wants to steal from these people. And so while the party is going on, she kind of tricks Doe into going into King's house. They rifle through his drawers, they find some cash that he's got available, and basically the friend makes off with it. Now, King happens to you know, catch them in the act, as it were, and her friend escapes, but Doe is caught by King, and he's not too happy that she's taken this money. So basically he literally handcuffs her to the bed so that she can't escape, and then endeavours to find out, you know, who she is, why she's there, and where her friend is, so that he can go and get his money back. And of course then this starts a relationship between King and Doe, because Doe really doesn't know too much at all. She doesn't even know that much about herself, but King becomes very intrigued with her, but is determined obviously not to let her go until he's got what he wants. And then things start to unravel in this plot in terms of getting deeper into, like I say, King's backstory, who he is, the crime that he committed, what he's trying to do now he's out of prison, and we also start to unravel a little bit about Doe's backstory, and slowly but surely she starts to piece together who she is. Now this first book in this duet does end on a cliffhanger, and it is very gripping, and it will make you want to go on to read the second book in the series, Tyrant, because by the end of this book Doe does get her memory back, and then book 2 is dealing with basically everything that she's remembered and the repercussions of that. So definitely recommend this. It's a great start to this recommendations video. Next up then, I've got another duet, but actually these two books are pretty short, so together they kind of as long as a normal book. And we are talking here Devil's Vow and Devil's Own by Aidee James. This one is a mafia romance, and it's books 1 and 2 of the Diablos cartel series. So like I said, this is mafia, but it's cartel romance, captor captive, Amnesia. Like I said, the main character in this one is an ex-enforcer, so he appeared in my Mafia Romance Monday Enforcers edition video recently, and we are following Santos and Sonia. So this has a really interesting start. I was gripped literally from the first page, because the book starts where Sonia is running through a cornfield trying to escape some bad men who are shooting at her, and as she gets to the edge of the cornfield she sees a river. She jumps in. Santos is chasing after her. He jumps into the river as well, and as she's going downstream, because the current is taking them downstream, she hits her head on a rock and she passes out. Now what happens is, skip to the situation which is 5 years later. She wakes up in bed, and when she wakes up, basically she finds out that 5 years has passed since this accident, and she is now married to Santos. He claims that they you know, have been happily married for 5 years, but she has absolutely no memory of these events at all, and she doesn't really trust him, because obviously all she can remember is the kind of final moments before she kind of blacked out. So the rest of this book then is starting to figure out exactly, you know, what happened in the 5-year gap, and for Sonia to try and get her memories back. But what we also find out, there's a bit of a flashback in here because we jump back in time, and we do find out that Sonia and Santos did know each other in the past, about 10 years before her accident. They did know each other. Santos used to be her father's enforcer, and they did have a bit of a fling, but then when her father found out some things happened, Santos kind of had to kind of leave, and so they had a big gap where they didn't know each other, and then basically flicked to people chasing her through a cornfield, and Santos going to essentially, it seemed that he was chasing her, but maybe he's actually trying to rescue her, and their kind of romance goes from there. So like I say, I really enjoyed this one. 2 really quick short reads. They're both novella length, but when you read them together it makes one book basically. But the cliffhanger is really good in this one, and it had me absolutely hooked and intrigued to kind of figure out exactly what was going on, because definitely you could tell not everything was as it seemed. From there we've got another mafia romance, and this one is Shattered Secrets by Lilian Harris. This is a standalone, but it is a bit of a spin-off from her Measha crime family series that she has. So this is mafia adjacent, I would say, and it's also a second chance, romantic suspense, a married couple, and we're following Hudson and Hadley. The reason this is mafia adjacent is because our main male character in this one, Hudson, he was actually kind of a lawyer for the Measha crime family. So he wasn't directly in the mafia, but obviously he kind of helped them, as it were. But what we know, and at the start of this book, we kind of see Hudson and Hadley when they first get together, and this is, you know, absolutely unconditional love. These two love each other so much, and they have a whirlwind romance, and they get married, and they have a very, very happy marriage. Now, Hadley doesn't know everything about Hudson. She knows he's a lawyer, but she doesn't know who he kind of helps in his free time, as it were, but nevertheless they are extremely happy together. The only dark cloud over their relationship is the fact that they are desperate for a baby, but unfortunately they have not been able to conceive, or if they have, she has not been able to carry the baby to term. So if you're sensitive to that, please check your trigger warnings before you read this one. So like I say, that is the only kind of like dark cloud that's hanging over this relationship. Other than that, they are very, very much in love and, you know, want to spend the rest of their lives together. Then one day something tragic happens and Hudson goes missing and he is presumed dead. And Hadley has absolutely no idea what's happened to him. It's like he kind of disappears off the face of the earth. Now she knows he would never leave her willingly. And of course the mafia that he belonged to is also very suspicious about what happened, and they vow basically that they are going to try and figure out what happened to him and where he is. Now what we know from Hudson's perspective is that he was actually set upon by somebody. He was in a fight, he hit his head, and then basically he's unable to remember anything. Now Hadley is obviously absolutely devastated that Hudson is no longer around, and even crueler, she discovers that she is actually pregnant, and she's absolutely overjoyed about the fact that she is finally pregnant, but obviously devastated that her husband is no longer around to, you know, celebrate with her and enjoy the experience with her. And then very tragically 4 years pass and she ends up having to obviously have the baby by herself, and becomes essentially a single mum. Now Hudson did have a best friend who has been, you know, has kind of been helping her for the last 4 years, but obviously she is, you know, continues to really struggle because she misses Hudson so much. Now, like I said, the Mafia family have been still searching for him because they've not given up hope, and they do have someone that kind of like periodically attempts to find him again, and eventually they do find him, and he is alive, and he is now basically trying to build his life because, like I say, he does have amnesia, he has no recollection of his past whatsoever, and he is now living in this town where he is becoming the mayor, struggling obviously with his amnesia but kind of moving forward. And so Hadley goes to see him, and again her heart is broken once more because he has absolutely no recollection of her at all. Seeing her does not trigger his memories. One of the things I really liked about this book is that the author made the decision that actually Hudson never gets his memories back. So what this book becomes then is a second chance romance between these two, because even though he doesn't remember her, he's obviously still very attracted to her, they still have great chemistry, and Hadley becomes determined that she's going to get to know her husband again and let him get to know her and kind of like, you know, rebuild their relationship, but a new relationship, because like I said, Hudson never fully recollects her or the past, but obviously they forge a new relationship together. So this one was a really, really interesting take, I think, on the amnesia romance, because like I said, he never gets his memory back, but it is a second chance for them. They do get a HEA, and of course throughout this we also uncover exactly what happened to him, how he lost his memory, and you know, who betrayed them. So I really enjoyed that one, would definitely recommend. Next up then we've got Ruined Secrets by Neva Altaj, and this is book 4 in her Perfectly Imperfect series, so yet again another mafia romance. This one is an age gap and also an arranged marriage scenario, and we're following Isabella and Luca. Now Isabella has been in love with Luca her whole life, but there is a big age gap between them, and Luca knew Isabella when she was just a teenager, and so he has always kind of fought his attraction to her, obviously because he knew her when she was younger and now she's grown up, so she you know, is of legal age, but still he can't kind of forget really that he knew her when she was younger. But still Isabella really, really likes Luca, and they end up in an arranged marriage together. And she is delighted by this because obviously this is her chance, right? She's in love with him, this is her dream kind of wedding, but he is still very resistant to her and is like, well, this is just an arranged marriage, so it doesn't have to be physical between us. And of course she tries to push his buttons to try and get him to change his mind. Then, as luck would have it, he is involved in an accident which leaves him with amnesia, and this is her chance, right? Because when she realises that he doesn't remember anything, two things basically happen. The first is that she decides that she's going to use the opportunity to maybe imply that they had a more physical relationship than they did, so to convince him that, you know, we were in love, we want to be together emotionally and physically, and so she kind of gets her way with him, but also it's her opportunity to step up and really show her support and how kind of intelligent and cunning she actually is. Because the thing is, because he's lost his memory, that puts him in a very vulnerable position in the mafia, and so he can't really let anyone know that he doesn't remember things, because this, you know, will make him weak and give his enemies a chance to take him out. So Isabella really helps Luca in this case, because she basically gives him all the background information, she tells him all about the people, she gives him information about his business and what he needs to do. And so she really almost helps him with the decision-making process and helps him navigate through this mafia world that he finds himself in, that he can't quite remember all the details to. So again, I thought this was a really interesting take on an Amnesia romance, because, you know, we have a much younger heroine here, but she has been paying attention. She knows him really well, she knows all of the people in the mafia really well, because she is a mafia princess, and she is going to absolutely grab this opportunity with both hands to, one, make him fall in love with her and you know, have a relationship that she really wants with him, but also to really help and guide him through the mafia business. So I thought this was done really well. I absolutely love Neva Altaj's books and would definitely recommend. Next up we have God of War by Rina Kent, and this is book 6 in the Legacy of the Gods series. This is a dark romance series. I would recommend that you read all of them in the series before you get to book 6, although you could read it as a standalone if you really wanted to, but I think it's best enjoyed if you've read all of the other books, because these are interconnected standalones and we learn quite a lot about the characters in this book as we go, and that really kind of, like, you know, really sets this book up and gives us a level of expectation about what we're going to get from this book at the end. Like I said, this is a dark romance. It's also new adult. This is a college setting, at least at first. It becomes a marriage of convenience, and these two are enemies to lovers. Of course, I'm talking about Eli and Ava. So throughout this series we've seen interactions between Eli and Ava, and they're not good ones, and it's very clear to me, or it was clear to me as I was reading the series, that they both like each other, but something happened in their past to mean that they really don't get on and they've kind of become enemies. In particular, it's clear that Ava maybe made some advances towards Eli which he rejected, and as a result she's felt very kind of like hurt and heartbroken about what's happened, and so they've kind of developed this kind of really toxic sort of relationship between them. Now, as we've gone through the series, obviously the other couples have kind of got together and we've gone through the college experience, and you know, we've seen how they've interacted, and at the start of this one we're kind of like almost after college now, but something has clearly happened in the past, because again, this is a situation where Ava wakes up in bed in hospital and she discovers that Eli is her husband and she's been married to him for a couple of years, and she cannot remember what's happened, so she has no idea of why she would ever agree to marry him, because, you know, the last memory she has of him is that they're enemies. So what could have happened to make her agree to marry him? Because clearly this is a marriage of convenience, and she doesn't understand not only why she would have accepted the marriage, but also why he would have entered into this relationship as well. And so then what happens from this book is we do then start to get some flashbacks of you know, what happened previously, not only in their distant past to make them hate each other to start with, or to, like, you know, create this toxic environment, but also what's happened 2 years prior to ensure that they ended up in this kind of marriage of convenience. I really enjoyed this book. Rated it 5 stars. I thought it was a fantastic ending to the series as a whole, but it was also pretty tough to read. You know, Ava is going through quite a difficult experience, a lot of mental health issues, and you know, the relationship between Eli and Ava is very powerful and strong, and it's clear that they do love each other and will find their way to each other, but they have to go through quite a lot of difficult situations before they're going to get their HEA. And so, like I say, yeah, this was quite difficult to read, but also really powerful story, and I really enjoyed it. And like I said, I thought it was a fantastic ending to the series. Of course, Ava has amnesia, and this is a instant where it's not complete amnesia. She obviously still remembers parts of her life and parts of her past, and so this is really kind of like selective amnesia, if you like, where her brain is almost shut down to try and protect her from what's happened in the last 2 years. So as always with Rina Kent, read your trigger warnings before you go into that one and prepare yourself for an emotional ride. Next up, we've got something a little bit more fun, even though it's still a dark romance, and that is Sacred Vow by Measha Stone. This is Sacred Obsession Book 1, and this is another dark kind of mafia romance. We have a Russian mafia hero in this one. This is a forced marriage between Andre and Izzy. I've said this is dark mafia, but I've also said this is fun, right? If you've ever read any of Measha Stone's before, then she tends to write, you know, over the top, very obsessive possessive heroes, very insta-lovey. You know, he takes one look at the heroine, decides that she belongs to him, and then doesn't take no for an answer. So I always kind of feel that these books are, you know, less serious, more fun in that respect, because they're absolutely bonkers. So if you like that kind of hero and that kind of story, then I definitely recommend Measha Stone. Her books are also tend to be fairly on the short side as well, and they're really easy to kind of whip through. So with this particular one, we have Andre and Izzy. Like I said, Andre was part of the mafia, and he had a very good friend who happens to be Izzy's brother. The thing is, Izzy was witness to a crime, and she witnessed something horrible happening to her brother, and as a result she has blocked out this very traumatic event and therefore can't remember what happened. So again, this is kind of a selective amnesia story, because she has literally just blocked out a very, very traumatic event in her life. And she doesn't know really what happened. What she does know is that after this happened, she was still quite young, and Andre made Izzy leave with her mother and essentially set her up in a completely different town with new identities, to keep her safe from something that happened. And so she has kind of been brought up in a completely different environment, but she obviously still remembers that she used to live in Chicago, and she remembers Andre, obviously she remembers her brother. She just doesn't remember what happened to him, and you know, and can't remember anything about the situation. She just remembers that she was kind of forced to leave with her mum. Now she's much older and she's grown up, and this has haunted her for some time, and she's absolutely determined to find out what happened to her brother. So she decides that she's going to head back to Chicago to see if she can trigger any memories, and she starts to go to some of the old places that they used to go to, try and meet up with some of her brother's old friends. And of course, it's not too long before she goes to the wrong place. Andre spots her and is not too happy that she is there. So he pulls her to one side and says, Izzy, what the hell are you doing back here? I told you to leave and never come back. I set you up, you were safe, and now you've put yourself in danger by coming here. I've been hearing that you've been asking around. This is really not a good situation for you to be in. You're really putting yourself in danger. And she says to him, you know, look, I'm older now, I can take care of myself. I need to find out what happened to my brother. And so of course he goes into, you know, feral alpha mode, and basically determines that she is not safe, and if she refuses to leave Chicago, then he's going to have to take matters into his own hands. And of course, one of the things he can do to make her safe is to marry her, you know, the relationship very much goes from there. And of course she's going to go against Andre's wishes and continue to investigate what happened to her brother, and maybe things are going to work out, and maybe she's going to get herself into a spot of bother. Next up then, I've got My Bloodline by K C Kean. This is book 1 of the Featherstone Academy. Now there's 6 books in this series, and the first 3 books all feature the same heroine and her 4 heroes, because this is a Why Choose romance. It's also a dark Mafia Academy story, so new adult, very suspenseful, and the characters in this one are Luna, our main heroine, and then we have Parker, Ronan, Kai and Oscar as well. With this one, we have another heroine who has witnessed a very, very traumatic event. In fact, when she was very small, maybe 3 or 4, something like that, she was the witness to a very bloody crime where her father was unalived in a very, very disturbing and graphic way. And of course, as a little girl, this is a very traumatic experience for her, and she has therefore blocked this out from her memory. However, Clearly it's still in her subconscious because she is very easily triggered by certain things or events, or when people start talking to her about her family or anything like that. Now, she's actually been brought up by her father's best friend who's kept her safe for all of these years. He's a very capable man. He used to be in the military. It's clear he knows how to defend himself, and he kind of rides a motorbike and also now owns a tattoo parlor. So he is definitely kind of an alpha male sort of character, but he made a promise to his best friend to you know, keep his daughter safe, and he has honoured that agreement and brought up Luna virtually as his own, and you know, he's been taking really good care of her. The thing is, he's been keeping a secret from Luna all this time because her father was actually a very powerful man in a mafia family, and this is why it's called My Bloodline, because Luna has a very specific bloodline. And what we actually find out is that there is a number of very powerful families, all with very powerful bloodlines, and there's you know, her bloodline happens to be one of the most influential and powerful ones out there. Now, like I said, the best friend has been keeping this from Luna all of this time, but he can't keep it for her anymore when she turns 18, and her mother actually comes to get her because her mother was actually also part of a different mafia family, also a very powerful bloodline, and of course her and her father then had Luna, and actually we discover that her mother is not a particularly nice person. She's very vindictive and cruel, and she's been allowing the best friend to bring her up, but always had the intention that when she turned 19 she was going to come and get her. So she does, and she takes Luna and forces her to join this mafia academy basically, and Luna really has no option and no way out. But luckily the Guardian basically has taught her to defend herself, which is pretty damn good, because when she gets to this school it's dog eat dog, and yeah, some of the other students are not going to waste too much time before they attempt to, you know, eliminate her from the situation, because they realise that she's a powerful bloodline and don't want her to have more power than them, essentially. So that we enter into this kind of like mafia war at this school, and there are clear lines of goodies versus baddies. Now, luckily for her, Parker, Ronan, Kai and Oscar are also from very powerful bloodlines, and they take an immediate shine to Luna and kind of take it upon themselves to defend her and protect her at this school. And slowly but surely she starts to develop a relationship with each of these characters until they kind of agree to enter into a relationship where they're going to share her. So this was really interesting. It was very suspenseful. It kept me on the edge of my seat. I definitely would recommend it. However, I've not yet continued with this series, so I don't know what happens in the following books. But from an Amnesia perspective, Luna, like I say, very much has blocked out this particular memory, and she's gonna, now she's in this academy, she's definitely going to be triggered by starting to remember more about her past, who she is, what happened to her father, and where before she, like, if she was triggered, she had like kind of like sort of like crippling kind of rage almost, where she'd kind of fly off the handle and she'd be uncontrollable. With her new friends and the ability to channel her rage into a new area, she starts to get to grips with this, and yeah, is finally able to kind of open up her mind and remember more and more. So another interesting take, I think, on the Amnesia trope. And then finally we've got Defiled by Poppy Aster, and this one is a monster romance. This is book 1 in the Monster Gentleman's Club series. This is actually just a short story, about 60 or 70 pages, so you will fly through this one, and that's great news because actually this is part of a kind of trilogy of stories. So books 1 to 3 in this particular series are all based on the same couple, and book 1 definitely ends on a cliffhanger. It's going to make you want to carry on reading, but like I say, they're all really short, just 60 or 70 pages a piece, and so you'll fly through these, so I'd highly recommend. Like I said, this is a monster romance. We are dealing with our main hero in this one, Jarek. He is a werewolf. It's also fated mates, and revolves around a sex club, and in particular an auction, because what's actually happening in this world is that there are monsters. So we have werewolves, vampires, as well as other monster types, and if they want to, they can be members of the Gentleman's Club. And then what happens is that human women volunteer to go to this club. They can be auctioned to the highest bidder. the monster can have their wicked way with the women for an evening, and what actually happens is that the women earn quite a lot of money because they get whatever's bid on them, but in the morning they are basically given an injection which essentially wipes their memory. And the reason they do this is because the monsters want to keep their identity hidden. They don't want humans to know that they exist. And so if they wipe the memories of these women, you know, everyone's a winner. The men get what they want, they have a fantastic night, the women get their money and basically don't remember anything afterwards, so everyone is a winner. Now at the start of this particular story we have Mercy. Now unfortunately for her, she just happens to get off at the wrong bus stop. She gets off at the wrong bus stop, she sees some unsavoury people in the street, she starts to run, she ends up in this monster gentleman's club, and when she's there she's mistaken for somebody who is basically entering the auction and ends up finding herself on stage being bid on by the highest bidder. Now it's Jarek that ends up bidding on her and having a fantastic night together. So they end up together obviously, and while they're there Jarek realizes that she is his fated mate and is desperate to make sure that she doesn't forget anything, and so attempts to prevent her from being injected with this kind of like memory wiping serum. Unfortunately he is too late, they get her, and this first book then ends where she is given the injection, sent home, and she literally has no memory of Jarek. But of course Jarek remembers her and she is his fated mate, and so he is not going to be too happy about this turn of events. So again, another one where I thought this was interesting because it's not necessarily amnesia through a trauma or because of an accident, but this is a deliberate wiping of memories so that Mercy doesn't remember who Jarek is or that they're fated mates. So there we go, that's 8 Amnesia romance recommendations for you. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content from me. And if you have any Amnesia romance recommendations, feel free to put those in the comments section down below and I'll be sure to check those out. So all that's left for me to do is say thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye. So all that's left for me. So there you go, that is 8 romance recommendations that feature so there we go, that's 8 romance so we have werewolves, vampires, what else? Next up, something more fun and a little bit bonkers. We've got sacred Next up, we've got something a little bit more fun, definitely bonkers, and we have... Next up, we've got something a little bit more fun, definitely bonkers, and at the start of this...